Subramanian Chidambaran and then it will be followed by Shivakumar GVG. Okay, over to you, Sri Subramanian Chidambaran. Now, he is an Indic research scholar and Carnatic musician. He lives in Mumbai, works for a multinational company. He was a recipient of Indica's short-term research fellowship for Sri Shankara Advaita Vedanta. Now his book on a book called Shankarayana about the biography of Shankaracharya has come out and is getting very good reception all around. And he has given talks in Indica's various events on history of Carnatic music and Subramania as a guru concept and many other very, very interesting talks. Today, Sri Subramanian Chidambaran is going to talk about Ramayana and South Indian music and inseparable bond. Over to you, Sri Subramanian Chidambaran.
Namaste Nagaraji and namaste to everyone. The topic of the day is Ramayana and South Indian music, an inseparable bond. So in this, for the next 40 minutes odd, I would be touching upon three topics or three aspects of this topic. First is mentions of music, Sangeeta Shastra within the Ramayana. I'll very briefly touch upon that. Second is aspects of Ramayana or characters of Ramayana who have found mention in the musicological texts in the Sangeeta Shastra. That also I will very briefly touch upon. And then I will move on to the various interesting references of the Ramayana that we find in the various compositions of South Indian music. So these would be my three aspects of the talk. So to begin with, the basics of Sangeeta Shastra. Now, even some of the earlier speakers today also mentioned about this shloka. In the very first chapter itself, you find the shloka where after composing the Ramayana, Valmiki has composed it in a way that can be rendered as a ballad, that can be rendered as a musical form. That's why it says, Patye Geye Cha Madhuram. To read as well as to sing. It's so melodious. Now, he doesn't stop with that. It says, Pramanaihi Tribihi Anvitam, Jatibihi Saptabir Baddham, Tantrilaya Samanvitam. How was it rendered? How was the Ramayana rendered by Lavakusha? Later on, all that description and explanation comes. It was rendered by Lavakusha firstly after composing. Valmiki chooses Lavakusha because they are experts in the Sangeeta Shastra, in the Gandharva Vidya, and this Ramayana has to be rendered as a Sangeeta. So that is why he even chooses Lava and Kusha, because they're experts. So this Kavya itself, Pramanaihi Tribihi Anvitam. So it has got three aspects. So that Sangeeta, which has got three aspects, which is Druta Madhya Vilambita. So the later commentators, the Bhashyakaras, various people have commented on the Valmiki Ramayana. They have explained that the three Pramanas speak about the Druta Madhya Vilambita. That is the fast paced, the medium paced, and the slow paced. Those of us who are learning Carnatic music or music in general would know these speeds, right? These speeds of singing. Jatibihi Saptabir Baddham. Sapta Jatis. Sapta Jatis, they say, it's explained as Shadjadayaha Saptaswaraha. The seven swaras, the seven notes, beginning from Shadja. Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, Nishada. The Jatis. Because each of them is not just one note. There are variations. Except for Shadja and Panchama, each of them has got various variations. You have the Shuddha Rishabha, the Komala Rishabha, Shuddha Gandhara, Antara Gandhara. So people of musicology will say that there are various categories even within these swaras. So these are the jatis within that. So all the jatis can be classified into 7. Jatibihi saptabir baddham. It is bound in these 7 jatis of the 7 swaras. Tantri laya samanvitam. A beautiful phrase. Tantri shabdena tantri yukta veena lakshyate. The stringed instruments. And in those days, it was the veena. Laya is something that keeps up the tempo. Generally referred to as a percussion instruments, but here interestingly you also find the venu also being mentioned within the list of instruments, but primarily it is the percussion instruments like the mridanga, the nam, that is what is mentioned here. Kala virama, so it keeps up the kala pramana. Interestingly, even till today, if you look at South Indian music, and for that matter even North Indian music, but primarily South Indian music, earlier days used to have the veena and the mridanga accompanying the vocalist for the kacheris or for the performances. You had the veena and the mridanga accompanying. But from the time of Muthuswami Dikshitar, when he introduced the violin through his brother Baluswami Dikshitar, from then on, when violin entered into the forum, you have the violin as a prominent instrument, accompanying instrument, along with the mridanga, the gata, the ganjira, which are all percussion, which all keep up the kala pramana. They are all laya, the laya instruments, and then you have the tantri instrument. You have it as the violin. So you see that even today, if you look at the picture of a Carnatic music or a South Indian music performance, it will be Tantri Laya Samanvitam. That one phrase is enough from the Ramayana to say to look at the inseparable bond between the two. Now, when you look at the musicians, the Lavakushas, the artists, the musicians who actually expounded the Ramayana, when explaining about them or when describing them, Valmiki says, Tautu Gandharva Tattvajñau. They are well known in the Gandharva Shastra or Sangeeta Shastra. Murchana Sthana Kovidau. They are experts, Kovidas, in Murchana and Sthana. Now, Murchana, for those of us who know the musicology, the Sangeeta Shastra, Murchanas are certain formations of swaras to give the reflection of the raga, to give the flavor of the raga. The raga is expressed through Murchanas. That is how we understand. Now, in the explanations in the Bhashyas, Murchana Shabdena Veenadi Vadana Muchyate. The Vadanas or the playing of the Veena is explained through the word Murchana, but also the understanding of Murchana, as I mentioned, is also mentioned. Murchana Shabdaha Swarapurna Sthana Paraha. So it involves a combination of swaras. It involves a particular combination of the various swaras, which gives a flavor of that particular raga, the tune. That is the Murchana. Sthana Shabdena Mandra Madhyama Tara. This is the Sthai, which we call in the technical language in Carnatic music as Sthai. Mandra Sthai is the lower octave. Madhya Sthai is the middle octave, and Tara Sthai is the higher octave. So the 3 octaves that are there, the low, middle, and the high, those 3 are indicated by the word Sthana. So you can see that even in the beginning, as Valmiki even tries to expound the Ramayana, how much of Sangeeta Shastra was involved even in the exposition of the Ramayana, that is mentioned here. Now, within the Ramayana itself, you find a lot of references to the various musical instruments, etc. I'm not going into those details. You have a lot of articles and interesting books also being written on this. Interested readers can definitely refer to those. I'm just giving one example here from the Sundarakanda, where Hanuman, when he is searching for Sita and he goes into the palace of Ravana, there the scene that he sees where each woman that is there in that palace is sleeping with one musical instrument, and that itself he gives a line of instruments: Veena, Madduka, Pataha, Vipanchi, the Veena Vipanchi, Mridanga, Panava, Dindima, Vichitrani, Atodhyani, Vichitrani, very, very different, strange instruments also, he says, are there. So, all through the Ramayana, you find a lot of various references to musical instruments, to different forms of musical instruments, to the Sangeeta Shastra that I just spoke about, the different kinds of talas, samatala, etc. All these you find mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. So you find a lot of Sangeeta Shastra already embedded within the Ramayana. So that is the point number one. Now let's come to the second point, which is about the characters in the Ramayana. Now, of course, we do find mentions in various articles that speak about Rama being knowledgeable about the Gandharva Shastra. But the two primary characters of the Ramayana, which are very heavily associated, very closely associated with Sangeeta Shastra, are Hanuman and Ravana. As far as the references of the Valmiki Ramayana itself are concerned, I probably just found one reference where it is more mentioned about Ravana singing the Samagana or the Sama Suktas, Samabir Vividhai Stotraihi Pranamya Sa Dashananaha. This comes in the Uttarakanda when he has to propitiate Lord Shiva. It is said that he propitiated him through the Sama Stotras. But I did not find too many other references, but probably there would be many references related to the knowledge of Sangeeta Shastra that Ravana had. But as far as Anjaneya is concerned, interestingly, though we may not find too many references in the Ramayana itself, one of the defining texts of Sangeeta Shastra, when you look at the defining texts, the earliest text after the Samaveda, after the Vedic scriptures, you find the Natya Shastra, Bharata's Natya Shastra. Then one of the primary texts is the Sangeeta Ratnakara of Sharangadeva. We of course have various other texts like Brihad Deshi and multiple other texts, but Sangeeta Ratnakara of Sharangadeva is considered as a very defining and a monumental text on musicology. In that Sangeeta Ratnakara, initially Sharangadeva speaks, he venerates the various gurus or various experts of music. He gives a list of people. In that he mentions two names, Anjaneyo Matrugupto Ravano Nandikeshwaraha. He mentions two names. He mentions Anjaneya and he mentions Ravana as two experts of music. So even in the Sangeeta Shastra itself, you find reference to Anjaneya and Ravana. Now onwards, I will also demonstrate some of these points by singing them through. So I'll just on my Shruti as well. Now there is a beautiful Kriti in the Raga Suruti where Tyagaraja Swami, he says, Hanuman, he says, Anjaneya Swami, you are the one who understands the essence of Gita, that is Bhagavad Gita, and Sangeeta Shastra. Gita Musan Gita Nandamu Gita Judara O Manasa Gita Gita Pati Charanam Jamunido Punna Vatatmaju Niku Bagatelu Sura Vatatmaju Niku Bagatelu Sura. You very well know the essence of Gita and Sangeeta. And then he goes on to say that Hanuman knows many other things, and that's what he mentions in the Tarana. Now, very similar to Sharangadeva in the Sangeeta Ratnakara, because Tyagaraja Swami follows Sharangadeva very closely in that very popular kriti called Vidulakum Rokeda, where he venerates the great experts of music. In the Charana, Tyagaraja Swami he says, Kamala Gauri Bhagishwari Vidhi Garuda Dvaja Shiva Naradulu Amaresha Bharata Tashyapa Chandisha Anjaneya Guha Tajamukulu. He mentions Bharata and then he comes to Anjaneya. Later on, he is also going to mention Sharangadeva. But Anjaneya comes as an expert of music, as mentioned by Sharangadeva in the Kriti of Tyagaraja Swami. So these are the mentions that we find of Anjaneya, Ravana as experts of music or as knowers of music in various texts. So this is the effect of Ramayana on the musicology and the kritis and compositions. Now, we come to the third part, which is about the inspiration that Ramayana has been. We are talking about living traditions. When you look at South Indian music, while the musicological texts, as I said, are the Natya Shastra, the Sangeeta Ratnakara and all of that, when you look at the compositions, the earliest compositions, musical forms, you find as the basis or fundamental for our music or South Indian music has been the compositions of the Alvars and the Nayanmars, the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite saints of South India. Their compositions are the earliest that we have in terms of musical forms, complex and simple musical forms. Now, Nayanmars were devotees of Shiva, Alvars were the devotees of Vishnu. Interestingly, even in the songs on Shiva, the Nayanmars, the Padigams, as they are called, you find references to Ramayana. In the very first song of the Tevaram songs, that is the songs of the Shaivite saints, the very first section is that of Tirujnana Sambandar, and the very first song, Todudaya Seviyan, in that he says, Diyarilangu varayum diya tolvalai vidam vidai vita Uyirilangai yarayal vali setrana tullam kavar kalvan Uyirilangun உலகிற் பல ஊழிகள் தோன்றும் பொழுதெல்லாம் பெயரிலங்க பிரமாபுரமேவிய பெம்மானிவனன்றே. In the first two lines, he is giving the reference, he is praising Shiva. He says, you are that Shiva with just a press of your foot. You could put the entire Kailasa mountain on the 10 hands of Ravana. Uyir Ilangai Arasan, the king of Ilangai, Lankadipati. His hands got completely crushed under the weight of the Himalayas because of your just pressing with the toe of the foot. You just pressed with the toe, you just gave a slight pressure and the whole thing came down. What to say of your greatness? So the reference comes here, even in the Padigams. Though you have the compositions of the Alvars on Mahavishnu, very few compositions have been on Rama. Interestingly, you have the composition of Kulasekar Alvar, who was a great devotee of Rama himself, but he has imagined in a very different way a lullaby to Rama. In the Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, you do not find the child Rama very much. Rama quickly grows in the Ramayana. You find the childhood pranks of Krishna more celebrated. But here, there is a lullaby being sung to Rama. It's very famously called Ragavane Talelo. Manupugal Kosalaidan Mani Vairavaitavane Penilangai Kon Mudigal Hindu Betai Simpun Ser Kanninan Mahamadil Pudai Sur Karnaburatil Tarumaniye Yanudaya Innamude Ragavane Talelo. Follows with many more stanzas. It is a lullaby sung to Rama. So this is the beginning, right? Even in that basic, the fundamentals of our music, you find references there. Then the South Indian music has been nourished by various other Vagyakaras, starting from Jayadeva Kavi, the Ashtapadi of Jayadeva Kavi, in which the very first Ashtapadi, when he speaks about the Dashavatara and the Ramavatara, he says, Vitarasi Dikshurane Keshava Dikpati Kamaniyam Dashamukha Mauli Balim Ramaniyam केशवाधृता राम शरीर जय जगदीश हरे. Praising that great Rama who put an end to the Dashamukha, to Dashanana, which is Ravana. But from then on, if you look at the various Vagyakaras who have contributed, whether they are having any Ishtadevata, they have all had songs composed on Rama, and Ramayana has been flowing, and Rama Bhakti has been flowing through all their compositions. Purandaradasa has sung a lot of songs on various deities. On Rama, there are so many songs, one of which is Rama 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 Rāmāyaṇa Amarapati Yadugyanama Anudagado Rama 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 Rāmāyaṇa. Great composers like Kshetriya. Kshetriya has composed a lot of songs primarily on his Ishtadevata called Muvva Gopala. Even he, in one of the padams, which are one of the classiest forms that we sing in Carnatic or music or South Indian music, he says, Rama Rama Prana Sakineda Basi, where it is like a conversation happening between Sita and Rama, or they are not able to bear the separation from one. It's an ayaki bhava. The separation is not being able to be borne by the Nayika. Then of course we have Bhadrachala Ramadasa, several songs. And many more songs that we have of Bhadrachala Ramadasa. Sadashiva Brahmendra, an Avadhuta, a Brahmajnani, when he composed various songs, he sang Mama Hridaye Rama. Rama is playing in my heart. Ibare Rama Rasam Rasane Ibare Rama Rasam. O tongue, O speech, O mouth, please drink the nectar of Ramanama. Oothukad Venkata Subbayya, who is known as a great Krishna devotee, he sang the glory of Rama sitting in that Manimaya Mantapa of his Pattabhisheka. Kaljana Rama Ita Kaljana Rama Sakurama Sita Kanakamakuta Maragata Manilola Arada Sharata Bala Sita Kaljana Rama Rama. Mirabai, a Pakka Krishna Bhakta, he sings Payoji Mene Ramaratana Dhana Payo. Payoji Mene Ramaratana Dhana Payo. I have got the Dhana, the wealth of Rama, Ramanama. Annamaya, who has been one of the prominent composers, and though his compositions remained hidden for a long period of time, they were rediscovered in the last century and brought back by great Vidwans back to the center stage. A great devotee of the Venkateshwara of Tirupati, Balaji. However, the interesting part, many of these bhaktas, whoever be their Ishtadevata, they will sing on Rama and bring back to their Ishtadevata. And they will end with their Ishtadevata, but they will still sing on Rama. That is the Rama Bhakti, that is the spirit of Rama. Beautiful song in which he encompasses, he summarizes the entire Ramayana. Namo Namo Raghukula Nayaka Divijavandya Namo Namo Shankarana Gajanuta. The one who is worshipped by Shankara and Parvati. Nagajanuta. Vihita Dharma Palaka Vihita Dharma Palaka Veera Dasharatha Rama Gahanavasini Tataka Mardana Alya Shapa Vimochana Asura Kula Panjana Sagaja Vishwamitra Tava Rakshaka Namo Namo Arako Dandahara Sitangana Vallabha Karadushanari Rivali Garbapa Karani Tanujadi Tanuchara Panaka Sharadilangana Gritya Saumitri Sameta Namo Namo Viruda Ravana Shirobhedaka Vibhishana Varada Saketa Puravasarakhava Nirupama Shri Venkatanilaya. He starts with Vihita Dharma Palaka Veera Dasharatha Rama Tataka Mardhana Ahalya Shapa Vimochana Vishwamitra Savana Rakshaka Itangana Vallabha Karadushanari Vali Garvapaha Crossing of the Lanka Sharadilangana Viruda Ravana Shirobhedaka Vibhishana Varada Saketa Puras. Up till Pattabhishekam he has completed. This format was then later adopted by various other Vagyakaras. We heard earlier during the presentation of Anandaji about Bhavayami Raghuramam. Is a very similar composition of Swadhitirunal Maharaja, which again encompasses the whole. There are 6 stanzas. Each stanza is a summary of one of the kandas of the Ramayana, from the Balakanda till the Yuddha Kanda. The same format has later been then inspired and adopted by the later Vagyakaras. Now, coming to, so this inspiration has been there throughout in the compositions of Karnataka, Sangeeta, or South Indian music especially, because it's built on the compositions of these composers, and then later on the Trinity, Tyagaraja Swami, Muthuswami Dikshit, Shyama Shastri, all of them have taken up from these composers. So to even say that our music is devoid, we can replace Rama with some other name, we can replace, it is simply not possible, because Bhakti, and especially Rama Bhakti, flows very deep in Karnataka Sangeeta and South Indian music. When you look at the various compositions of Tyagaraja Swami, of course, yes, he was a Rama Bhakta, he has composed innumerable compositions, but there are a lot of references that we find in the Tyagaraja Kritis to some rare events of the Ramayana. The Ramayana, it must have been just mentioned in one of the places, but that is taken up and mentioned. For example, this Taka Daitya, the crow Asura, that is mentioned in the Sundara Kanda, when Hanuman is asking Sita, please tell me some indications that I can go back and tell Rama so that he believes that I have met you. So tell me some important information which just you and Rama know. The very first incident that Sita speaks about is this Taka Daitya, where the crow Asura was pecking Sita constantly and blood had started coming, and knowing this, Rama takes up the Kushagras, the Darba, and with the mantra he hurls it at the crow and it becomes a Brahmastra. Tato mamsa samayukto vayasa paryadundayat tadarbham sanskarat grihya brahmhena astrena yojayat tadipta iva kalagnihi jwalabhimuko dvijam. It burnt like the kalagni and it was going behind that Asura, the crow Asura. In one of his kritis, Shrikantani Yedapaladipala in Bhavapriya, very rare raga, Tyagaraja Swami says, Kakadaityunige Sharamunaneya Kanjajastramai Paragaleda. The Kakadaityu was there. You put a Sharamunaneya Kanjajastramai. The Shara, the Darba, became a Kanjajastra. See the beautiful usage of the term. That is a separate topic by itself, the Sanskrit phrases in Tyagaraja Swami's kritis. He has to say Brahmastra. Brahma is born of the lotus, and the lotus is born of the water. So Kanjaja. Kanja is lotus, and Kanjaja is born of the lotus, that is Brahma and Brahmastra. The second, another kriti in Majanaki, where he says Rama that just because you took the hand of Sita, your glory is there. In that, he says one line, Vani matalaku gopa kinchi kanta vadhiyinchakane yulti. he says that Sita Devi, through her anger itself, would have burnt away Ravana. But she did not do that. She left him for you, so that the glory should come to you and not go to her. And this reference you find in the Valmiki Ramayana. Asandeshattu Ramasya tapasahacha anupalanat natvam kurmi dashagriva bhasma bharmarha tejasa. I have the capability to make you the Bhasma, but I leave that to Rama, and I am not going to take that. This Sita Devi says in the Sundarakanda itself. Another place, in a kriti called Entara Nidana, Tyagaraja Swami says that Lakshmana, you are nothing but the avatara, the incarnation of the Shiva Bhushana. Shiva Bhushana is what? The serpent. You are an incarnation of Adishesha. We constantly hear that. But that, though it is not explicitly mentioned here, in the Valmiki Ramayana you find Tarpe Jatau cha Saumitri Kulire Abhyutite Rabau. The birth of Saumitri, the birth of Lakshmana happens in the Sarpe Jatau, happens in the nakshatra of Sarpa. Dashlesha nakshatra is when the birth of Lakshmana happens, and that is mentioned, and that is correlated with his avatarana as Adishesha. And Tyagaraja Swami says, Sheshudu Shivuniki Bhushudu Lakshmana Veshiye Koluva Le You are the Sheshudu, Shivuniki Bhushudu. In that same kriti, he also mentions Hanuman as avatar of Parameshwara, which we will come to later. So these are the very, very interesting references. One other reference that we find in the Tyagaraja kriti is when, after the friendship with Sugriva, they go, Lakshmana, Rama and Sugriva, they go, and Rama asks Sugriva to challenge Vali. When they come, the first time, Rama is not able to shoot the arrow because he does not know who is Vali and who is Sugriva. After coming back, Sugriva is completely dejected. He's angry. He's angry that it was an embarrassment that happened, and Rama did not stay true to his words. So when he tries to admonish Rama, Rama says, Sugriva, I understand your problem. Please don't get angry. Sugriva says, Ahvayasveti mamukva darshayitva cha vikramam vairina ghatayitva kim idanim tvayakritam. Why did you do like this after having asked me to do all this? Why did you give up? At the last moment you went away. Rama says, Sugriva shruyadam tata. O tata Sugriva, shruyatam. Krodhascha yapaniyatam. Please remove away your anger. And then he explains further. This incident, Tyagaraja Swami beautifully brings in one of the kritis, Manamuleda, in Hamir Kalyani. He says, the Charana, Nisamukha Muna Ravitana Yudu Vasalubaga Tosamu Tosimhasana Adhipati Jesina Nigu Dasudina Tyaga Ni Samukhamuna Ravi Tanayudu. Ravi Tanaya is Sugriva. He is the incarnation of Ravi or Surya. Ni Samukhamuna, in front of you, Ninnu Basalu Balkaga. He spoke ill about you. Rosamuto, with a lot of anger and indignation. Simhasanadhipati Jesina. You made him the Simhasanadhipati. You crowned him the king of Kishkinda after removing all the anger. Why are you not showing grace to me? You don't seem to be caring about all these insults. Why are you getting angry with me? Why don't you show some mercy towards me? So these interesting references we find in the kritis of Tyagaraja Swami. Now coming to the next the final part of my presentation, which is Arunagiran. Arunagiran was a great saint poet who composed songs on Muruga. He was the Bhakta of Subramanian called Tiruppugal. But interestingly, there are so many references of Ramayana that he brings in Tiruppugal. So you see that Ramayana did not remain confined to just one sect of people. It was present everywhere. And today we hear about a lot of Ramayana in Tamil Nadu and in the Dravida Desha. These are all examples, additional validations of that. In one of his Tiruppugals, which is on the temple of Kadirkamam. Kadirkamam is the Murugan temple in Sri Lanka. Arunagirinatha had visited that and many other temples in Sri Lanka. There he gives reference to the Ramayana. He says, உடக்கு சில தூதர் தேடுக வடக்கு சில தூதர் நாடுக உனக்கு சில தூதர் தேடுக எனமேவி ஒரு பீர் குறிதானும் மாருதி இனித்த பொருது போவது ஒரே பேரி போன போதிலும் வரலாமோ அதி கூத்திரகாரராகிய அரக்கர் கிளையாத தீரனும் களைக புறமேவி மாதுரு பனமே சென்று அருள் போர் திருவாய் மோதிரம் அளித்தவர் மேல் மனோகரம் அளித்த கவிதாமேவிய பெருமாளே. He says, Sugriva asked some people to go westward, some people to go eastward, some people to go northward to search for Sita. Specifically, he sent Maruti towards the south. Puripir Puriganu Maruti. Maruti started reading in between the lines, Maruti or Hanuman. He said, okay, these three. That means he is wanting me to go towards the south. Terku oru doodu povadu. So he understood that Sita Devi, Sugriva is probably hinting that Sita Devi is mostly there. That's why he's sending me to that place. There he went, he met the Rakshasas, he burnt Lanka, and then he took your grace, O Muruga, because you were present in Kadirkama, which is in Sri Lanka, very close to the Ashokavana. Near that place only you have the place of Kadirkama. You blessed him at this place. Now this is a reference we don't find in the Ramayana at all, but Arunagirinatha gives in the Tiruppugal that Muruga blessed Hanuman in Kadirkama and then he returned back. In another Tiruppugal, இரவியல்தன் வெற்றி குரங்கின் அரசனென்றும் பற்ற உந்தி இறைவணங்கின கதனென்றும் நேடு நீதன் பெரியதென்றும் ருத்ரர் சிறந்த அனுமனென்றும் பற்றகழ்ந்த எவரும் வர்க்கத்தில் வந்து ஊனமேவ அரியதல் படை கர்த்தரென்று அசுரதன் இடை கட்டை வென்ற அறிமுகுந்தன் மேச்சூற்ற பண்பின் மருகோனே. He says, இரவி இந்திரன் வெற்றி குரங்கின் அரசன். He says, Iravi or Ravi, Surya and Indra, both of them appeared as Kurangu, as monkeys, the lord of monkeys, Kurangin Arasan. So these are Sugriva and Vali. In the Ramayana we find that reference. It says, Vanarendram Mahendrabhim Indro Valinam Atmajam Sugrivam Janayamasa Tapanaha Tapatambaraha. Tapanaha Tapatambaraha is Surya. So Surya came as Sugriva and Indra came as Vali. That is what is mentioned here by Arunagirinatha. And then he says, Nedu Neelan. Neelan came as the Suta or came as the embodiment of fire. Iraivanangi Nakkarthanendrum Neduneelan Eriyadendrum. Eriyadu means something that burns, that is fire. So Neelan Pavakasya Sudaha Shriman Neelaha Agni Sadrisha Prabaha says the Valmiki Ramayana. And then of course later on the Arunagiran says that Harimukundan, that Hari himself came as Sri Rama. So many references that Arunagiran, and finally he says, Sacha Rama, O Muruga, you are the nephew of that Rama, because Rama is Vishnu, his sister Parvati, and you are the son of that Parvati, so you are the nephew, Marugone. That is how he ends the entire Tirupugal. So the essence that I wanted to give through this discussion is to say that today we have this debate going on, which says that Carnatic music or South Indian music has to be just focused on the music, and there is nothing to do with the lyrics, there is nothing to do with the Sahitya, there is nothing to do with Bhakti. But I wanted to very specifically bring up this point here, especially related to the Ramayana, that Rama Bhakti or Bhakti in effect is an essential part of South Indian music. It is Bhakti music. It is built on the compositions of Bhaktas. Especially Ramayana or Rama Bhakti forms a central portion of South Indian music. Whichever composer you take, they have all contributed to this, and that forms the fundamental or basis of our music. So that's what I wanted to mention. Namaskara. Thank you.
Let us check if there are any questions to Subramanian Chandrasekharanji. Lalita Biji is saying excellent presentation, excellent singing too. Thank you. So it's a admirational comment to Subramanian Chidambaran. I don't see any questions. So, and there is an admiration for your co-panelist also. Charu Uppalji is also saying, what a delightful rendition. Thanks, Sri Chidambaranji.